All right, good. So as Andrew said, Rob Cummings, first of all, thanks to Skookum for having me today. I've been to a couple of tech talks, but I told a couple people, it was a couple years ago when you guys were across the street. But I look forward to telling the DealCloud story. Full disclosure, a couple guys from the DealCloud team are here today, and they don't know it, but they're all participants in the discussion today. So first, before I start, by show of hands, before you registered for this tech talk, who knew roughly what DealCloud does? Okay, so about half. I'm going to come back to that. So the goal today is to talk about our journey. So it's been 5 years, as Andrew said. We actually incorporated the business in September of 2010, didn't really get going to 2011. We've had a lot of good times, so that was myself and Ben, my business partner, actually getting to hold a big check. That'll probably be the only time I ever get to hold a big check. That was Charlotte Venture Challenge in 2012. Our infamous crash, so I'm going to single out Raj immediately. So let's see, November 7th, 2014, 2 in the morning, I get the call, Rob, this is Raj. We're down. I've been working on it for 2 hours, and we're not recovering. Not a phone call that you want to hear. Needless to say, the next 36 hours really sucked. We were down. And the only thing when we came in the next morning, Evan and I come in the next morning, the only thing we could do was call customers and just say, sorry, we're down. There's nothing that we can do. Meanwhile, Raj and the guys are just working frantically to rebuild our entire environment from scratch. It was a lesson learned as far as setting up a mirrored environment and everything, but it was not a fun time. The other thing I want to do today is just give you a couple of nuggets, a couple lessons learned that I've learned from building the business over the last few years, as well as talk about some myths you may or may not know about DealCloud. So first of all, personally, I've lived in Charlotte for 18 years. I actually live uptown, so I walked over today. I have 2 kids that had birthdays this past week. In fact, my girl turned 16, and she is 2.5 weeks from being her own driver. So we are big Panthers fans. We went to the Super Bowl, got to stand in front of a gigantic Cam Newton mural, which was a lot of fun. NFL experience was a lot of fun, and then the game started, and it sucked from there. The other picture is last year we visited, we went to this place in Europe, and they had, have you ever been on the Tower of Terror in Orlando? It was one of those Tower of Terror type of things, but in Tower of Terror, you know when you're dropping. And this ride, you had no idea when you were dropping, and they dropped us. And I thought this depicted our personalities great. My wife is just sitting there like, this is fun. And I am scared to death. That is true terror on my face. But the guys will say I can be intense at times. And so that's my intense face there. All right, so I asked that question before. For the people that didn't know what DealCloud is, how many people think it is a daily deal site? Anyone think that? It makes sense. DealCloud as a competitor to some of the others. So there is a DealCloud daily deal site located in the UK, and it's dealcloud.co.uk, naturally. Now, they've changed, so I consider us winning here. They changed to Voucher Cloud Deals. I took this screenshot off of their website yesterday, and they've changed it. But we used to have all of our email, any email that came to @dealcloud.com would come to Ben and I. And so if someone had a problem and they sent a message to help@DealCloud support, whatever it may be, if it didn't go, they were trying to go .co.uk, it would come to us. We get 15 to 20 emails a day of pissed off customers that didn't get their daily deal or whatever it may be. So my first lesson learned is don't build a daily deal site. Okay, so Ben is my business partner. I know that came up the elevator with, was it Chris that knows Ben? I'm sure a lot of people in this room know Ben. So Ben and I actually worked together at Falfurious Capital. I'll tell a little bit more about it. Ben's background is in investment banking and private equity, which is the in-market that we serve. And I'm the technology guy. Now, I haven't programmed since college when I was in computer science, but I know enough to be dangerous, and I can do some software design. And I actually built our original product. But ever since I've been in Charlotte for the last 18 years, I've been in and around software. So I started in 1998 with Ucentric, and I'm not sure if anyone's heard of Ucentric, but we were one of the tech startup darlings in Charlotte. This is before some of the others. And that was quite a ride. I was employee number 8. We grew to 250 people. We got all the way to the day that we were going to go public. The markets were crashing, and we actually got to the day we priced. We pulled our IPO. It never happened. Everybody that thought they were going to be multimillionaires didn't become multimillionaires. We ended up getting acquired by JD Edwards. JD Edwards turned into PeopleSoft. PeopleSoft turned into Oracle. I actually stayed the entire run through. So I can say I worked for small software companies and larger ones. My last stop before going to Falfurrias Capital was at Mobile Highway, which was another software company, like a 15-person software company here in Charlotte. When I sold that in 2007 to a firm in Atlanta, that's when I joined Falfurrias Capital. And that's when I hooked up with Ben. So how did we start? So it's a picture of Ben and I again from the Charlotte Venture Challenge. When I joined Falfurrias, private equity firm, so there's two main facets to the business. That first of all, they're looking for investors, so institutional investors to bring money in the fund. Once the money's in the fund, then they deploy that to buy and sell companies. And so they had no software internally. Being the tech guy, they said, "Hey, Rob, can you find us something?" And I scoured the market. There really wasn't anything out there. I found a platform which you could build these really complex relationships on top of, because that's the nature of the business. And I built this system just for internal use, never thought of DealCloud or anything. And over a couple years, it just kind of evolved as the requirements evolved. And Ben then joined DealCloud, and when we went to raise the second fund at Falfurrias, every investor that came in, we would always present this system as like, hey, we're really organized. We have a system that tracks all of the deal flow, that tracks all of the investments and all that kind of stuff. And every investor that looked at it said, this is really unique. We invest in a lot of private equity funds and nobody has this. And so we kept hearing it over and over again. And that's when Ben and I would be at the water cooler and he'd be like, I think we're onto something here. So let's keep enhancing this. And so that's when we said, is there a market? And there is a market for private equity, but it's pretty small. There's about 2,500 private equity firms in the US, so it's not a big market. But then we looked at it and said, if we went to investment banks, specialty lending groups, real estate, and venture capital, it's a much larger market. But then to triple that size of the market is what's called a fancy term called corporate development, which is basically M&A groups inside of big companies. That made it a real market for us. And we said, if we can create these micro vertical applications that serves each one of those, because the process flow for a private equity fund is completely different than an investment bank. But at the end of the day, they're tracking deals, they're tracking investors and that type of thing. So we said, okay, well, maybe it is a much larger market that we can go after. So there was a market. What are the technology gaps? So back in the day, this system, when I developed it, it would have Falfurrias owner as a field name. Well, obviously we can't sell that commercially, when it's got FCP or Falfurrias all over it. So there was some dumbing down of the system to do, and then there was the process of, creating the vertical applications. So we knew we had some work to do. The micro vertical systems were the way to go. Then it was how long until we can actually sell this when we have a minimal viable product or MVP. Of course, the big question is how much money do we need? And because we had an asset already that we had built internally, we didn't need all that money to start with. And then, of course, when to bite the bullet. And let's see. So we incorporated DealCloud. So 4 of us actually dug into our own pockets and we capitalized DealCloud. Now I call this lightly capitalized. Technically, it was our Series A for fundraising, but it was 4 guys putting in a little bit of money to just get started. I personally started splitting my time between Falfurrias and DealCloud. We developed the MVP, so I ripped out all of the fields that said Falfurrias owner and that kind of stuff. And we landed our first client, Claridge Capital. So the annual subscription on that was $600 a year. So keep in mind, our average subscriptions now are $25,000 and up. So it was a first customer and it was great, but it was small potatoes back then, but exciting. So next myth, Hugh McCall was one of the 4 that put money in on the business. So Hugh is the founder of Falfurrias Capital. And I remember early on when we started fundraising, everyone would just say, well, Hugh McCall's a founder. He can just keep digging into his pocket and funding you, and it didn't work that way. The other thing that it didn't work is Falfurrias Capital, it would be against their mandate to actually invest in a company like DealCloud. their mandate is $5 million EBITDA businesses and above, and that just, this company wasn't even profitable. So, the actual investment came from 4 partners from Falfurrias, but it was all personal money at the time. So 2012 was a blast. So this is when we started. So, my check picture again, did the Charlotte Venture Challenge. We won the People's Choice Award as well as the Technology Award, which amounted to about $11,000. I don't know if the Venture Challenge still does this, but it was like Price is Right style. So we got through all of the preliminary rounds, and then you're sitting in the audience, and there's going to be 5 companies to present, the final pitch. And sure enough, they pick our name first, and they're like, DealCloud, come on down. And you're on the spot. You have 5 minutes to pitch, and you're on the big stage. That was probably the most stressful pitch we ever had. But we did win the People's Choice, which was pretty cool. Then we did NC Idea. So Mailview, which was next to us at Packard Place, we took an office at Packard Place. We were there for 3 years. It was a great partnership. Mailview had won it, and Other Screen had won a NC Idea. They encouraged us. We did not get selected in the fall of 2012, which was discouraging. But everybody said, hey, if you're going to do an NC Idea, go back out and try it again. And we did. And so we ended up winning it in the spring of 2012. So if you're doing the NC Idea grant, that was real money. We ended up getting about $41,000 for NC Idea. And that was that was real money at the time. So it was a great experience. It is time consuming, but it was a great experience. As I said, we took up office at Packard Place, and then this is a picture of me in Mumbai. And so we hired a development team, a company called Idasoft, system integrator over in India, to develop the product. Well, 3 of the guys that are in that picture are now with DealCloud, and 2 of them are sitting here today. So they came over from DealCloud. We created this business, DealCloud Software Solutions Private Limited, which was a wholly owned subsidiary of ours in India. So we created that, and then the guys came over. And then Raj and Savin sitting here today, they actually went through the H-1B process and now reside in Charlotte here. So it's been quite a ride since that first picture. But the guys have been with me, and we've been together since then. And as I said, we took up office at Packard Place. We recently moved over to the North Carolina Music Factory in September. But Packard Place was a great place to grow the business. So first lesson learned, offshore development. I bet you almost everybody in this room has either done offshore development, worked with offshore developers in some capacity. So some of this stuff, probably makes sense. By the way, that's a picture of me at the Taj. First of all, it takes longer. I don't think that's any surprise to anybody. The iterations, 3 times the amount of iterations going back and forth. Raj, I think we were on Skype together every morning my time for at least 2 hours for 2 years. And that's just reviewing the product and everything. So Skype was a lifesaver, and Skype was free, so it was great. This is a great story. Find the guy or gal and write them into the contract. So I hired this firm, Idasoft, because they had done some good stuff. And I said, send me some representative work. And they sent me like 50 websites that they had developed. And I went through every one of them. And I come across this website, OK.com, OKAY.com. And it's basically Airbnb for Hong Kong and India. It's a pretty complex site. And so I went back to the firm and I said, whoever the guy was that developed that website, who was the technical lead, I want him written into my contract because he's going to develop DealCloud for us. Sure enough, it's that guy sitting right there. So Raj was the guy that did OK. I went to the site yesterday. It's still around, and it looks pretty slick. As I said, it's Airbnb. But Raj was written into our contract, and I wanted to make sure that he was the guy that was the lead. So, it went from there. I think I visited India 4 times. I stayed with his family and got to know them really well. As I said, we created this wholly owned subsidiary, DealCloud Software Solutions Private Limited, and that was a bit of an arduous process to go through with the legal stuff and everything, but it allowed us to recruit our own team, to pay them better than what they would have gotten paid at Idasoft, and to treat the employees the right way. And so we had a great run, and these guys were employees of that company until they moved over to Charlotte. We went through H-1B. It was a painful process. So Raj's story is he gets all the way through. He gets approved. He takes the day trip down to Mumbai to get the final stamp. He's going to have his plane ticket the next week and move to Charlotte. And he gets there, and they realize that he had come to Charlotte on a business visa, for what was supposed to be 3 weeks, but he spent the entire summer in 2011 at Packard Place building our product. And they saw that he was in Charlotte from Memorial Day to Labor Day, and they said no go. And they pulled the plug, and it was a rubber stamp at that point. It took another year of going back and forth with the Indian government to finally get it approved so Raj could come to Charlotte. But it was absolutely worth it having Raj and Savan here in Charlotte. Savan arrived back at Thanksgiving of last year. My one regret was not doing UI design here in the US, so we tried to do everything, and you know this, so I'm not a really good designer at all, I'll be the first to say, but I used to come up with these designs and I would send them over to the India team and I'd say, this is the concept, but I don't want it to look like this. And they would turn back exactly what I designed. I'm like, I suck at design, don't use my stuff. So I kind of wish that I would come to a Skookum or someone and said, hey, I want a rock star UI designer to really put together our design. I think that would have worked better. So lesson 2, competitions and grants. So we did the Power Up Challenge through the Chamber. We did the NC Idea, Charlotte Venture Challenge. The good news is that some of that material could be reused, but it's pretty darn time consuming. I know for Power Up, we had to do a trip down to Charleston. I know that sounds awful, but it was a lot of work. And I think looking back on it, the exposure was great. I mean, Ben was in the Charlotte Observer. I had a spread in the Charlotte Magazine, and everybody started hearing about DealCloud and everything. But at the end of the day, when you're doing that stuff, you're not growing your business. So there's a happy medium there. Don't get me wrong. Both Venture Challenge and NC Idea, especially the money from NC Idea, was real money. But looking back on it, I think we probably could have tempered it a little bit and kept our eye on the ball a little bit more. Then we fundraise. So this is in 2012. So I told you that we did this A round. We decided all at the same time we're doing these competitions of grant, we're going to go raise a B round. And it was pretty painful. We went to all these different groups, to VCs, high net worth individuals, and we did pitch after pitch after pitch. The myth here, we didn't raise any money in the state of North Carolina or in Charlotte, unfortunately. But we did raise a B round. Where it came from is where the check marks are. Really, it was from industry colleagues, people that understood the in-market that we serve. DealCloud is software for any M&A firm. People that understood that and the problem we were trying to resolve. And it gets a little technical, and that's why I'm not taking you through our full value proposition. But people that understood that were willing to invest in the business, as well as friends and family. The original partners invested, Ben invested, et cetera, et cetera. So my lesson 3 is fundraising sucks. So that's what I call the head nod. Fuck. It was, we'd have all these meetings. We love what you're doing. It sounds great. Give us a call when the round's going to close. We're in. 98% of that doesn't come to fruition. So it was a lot of that. We also got a lot of these crazy valuations. So we had just come a product. Met with this VC firm, and they said, you're worth $10 million pre-money, $10 million pre-valuation. And we were like, hey, that's great. That sounds good. Well, send over the term sheet. We'll send it around. That sounds great. Well, that was completely a farce. There was not a $10 million valuation, and no one was going to sign up for it, including the VC firm that sent us the term sheet. They were full of it. So needless to say, they're not around anymore. So we got a lot of friendly likes. The other thing that happened, I don't know if anyone's been around, we had a lot of people say, we'll use your software for free and we'll tell everybody about it. It's like, we're a for-profit business. We're not interested in giving away our software. So I think we did that one time and we were like, we're not getting any value out of this. So we stopped the freebies real quick. So 2013, I said 2012, we did all the competition fundraising. It was execution time. So heads down and execute. So we did have a pivot. So there was the product that I built back at Falfurious Capital, and then we brainstormed this DealCloud.com platform, which is a different spin, which was the ability to take deals, which are companies that are being bought or sold, put them on a platform in a secure environment, and invite buyers and sellers into the mix. It was a good idea. The mistake we made is we went with a freemium model. So everybody knows freemium, right? So think of LinkedIn, where you can go there and set up your profile for free. If you pay a little extra money, you can see all the people that are looking at your profile. You can post a job, that kind of stuff. Well, we did freemium in the B2B space, and that was a mistake. So we had features that were teaser features that you could get for free, and then we had a paywall set up that if you wanted to do additional features, you'd pay. The problem is going from even $0 to $20 a month is a big leap of faith than going from $20 to $2,000 a month. And I think that's a mistake we made. The people that had started actually paying for features, they had no problem upgrading, but it was the ones that the frees, which were the majority of the users, they weren't willing to even pay $20 a month. So we kept it going for a while. We kept it on life support, but it wasn't gonna make the company profitable. So we eventually end-of-life that product, which was a bit painful because we spent a lot of time on it. But on the other side, the platform that we had originally developed at Falfurious was growing like crazy. We were adding all kinds of enterprise customers. It was going well. The other thing that was happening, Ben, my business partner, he was getting on a plane every week and flying to New York City. Private equity firms and investment banks, most of them are located at least US-based, at least have an office up in New York. So he's jumping on a plane every week, and he finally looks at me and says, you know what, I have a house here, I have a car here, I'm just gonna leave it in Charlotte, and I'm gonna get an apartment up in New York. And that way I can do all these meetings in person and I can close more deals. So yeah, that sounds great. All that being said, we stayed very frugal. So we spent a lot of nights sharing hotel rooms, which is not a glamorous, stayed on friends' couches. We became professional skip-a-leggers. So if you're going to San Antonio, you book your flight through Dallas. Your meeting's in Dallas, you get off there and you never go to San Antonio. We became really, really, really good at that. And then we use inexpensive software. So as I said, we did a lot of Skype. Like today, we still use Asana, which is a project management system. That's where our entire product development pipeline is located, and it's free, so it's a pretty good price. You get a lot of advice. There's a lot of people that say, do this, do that, and at some point it just becomes like competing advice, so you just gotta go with your gut. We got our guy, we got Raj here from India to move to the US after going through that process. And we added 24 new enterprise customers. And then from the period of August 2012, when we did our B round, to August 2013, we got the business profitable, which we had to do it. We didn't do a big B round at all, so we knew we had to be heads down and execute. So, that's my next lesson learned is that, so I used to, and I felt bad when I walked in this morning. The last time I was at a tech talk was back in 2012 when you guys were in the other building. But it got to the point where if we were going to grow this business, we couldn't go to tech talks, we couldn't go to pitch breakfast, NCR Tech, and all these meetings all the time. You kind of had to pick and choose where you're going to go, or the business was going to fail. And so I actually have felt guilty over the last couple of years because I was really into the entrepreneurial community and everything, and then we just stopped, and it was heads down execution mode, and that's okay. There's a happy medium there, but it took us a while to figure that out. So 2014, this is when we really took off, started hiring a lot of employees. So my 4 tenets for building the business: number 1, be manic about customer service and support. So a couple of our guys are not here today because they're back at the office in case a support message comes in. But our culture at DealCloud is if a support item comes in, it doesn't matter what time of day or Saturdays or Sundays, we answer it. And the answer might just be, we got it, we're working on it. But the culture that I felt that I've instilled is that it's just to make sure, our competitors, some of them had support offshore, but nobody supports their customers like we do. I'd put us up against anyone. So that was the first thing, is just make sure that you support customers, and we try to resolve things as quickly as possible also. So our marketing, I was just talking to someone earlier about digital marketing. So when we won the NC IDEA grant, part of the money was earmarked for regular print advertising as well as some banner ads. And so we actually tested the waters back then, but we didn't really get much of a lift from doing that. It was kind of disappointing. Our best marketing, we have a database of about 25,000 people in the industry, and I guarantee you there's people in this room that get our email blast. Whenever we go live with a customer, which by the way, only about a third of the time customers will actually allow you to do it, but we send out a press release. It just, quote from the customer, standard press release, we push it to our 25,000. But the peer pressure we always see a big lift in that market. So one of our best customers, Tribe Capital, located in Dallas, one of our early on customers, we did a press release for them. Our second biggest market outside of New York City is Dallas. And it's all because of Tribe, because everybody knew that they were the high water mark for private equity in Dallas, and everybody wanted to be like them. And all that we did is every time we go live in Dallas, send out another press release. We get all kinds of leads coming in. So it's pretty inexpensive. I think we pay, what, $150 a month for MailChimp, and we push out these. So that turned out to be our best marketing. Now, with that said, should we do some digital marketing? Yeah, I mean, we get some good organic leads through our website, but we could do a lot better job, and we'll probably start doing that. So we didn't hire people until there was clear visibility to cover the burn. The good news with our software is a subscription, so you pay the full year up front, but we also have a professional services side, which is time and materials. So most of the people that work for DealCloud are doing onboarding for customers where we're actually charging them for our services. So if we had enough visibility in the pipeline for work, we're going to be able to cover their salaries and benefits. So we would just make sure we hired staff when we had clear visibility to cover the burn. And then eat your own dog food. So we are the best user of our own software. And these guys know it, and I'm super proud of it. So we ended up taking our software, which is obviously for buying and selling customers, but it's very, very customizable and configurable. So we developed it internally. So our pipeline's in there, all of our implementation stuff, and we use it all day, every day. And it's really great because we'll do a training call with a customer or even sales call, and I'll refer back and I'll say, hey, here's 9,000 emails that have been pushed into our system that are automatically tagged to you. And I'll go and I'll show them and I'll say, you know, here's the 25 emails that we've exchanged over the last month that are in our system. And I'll say this, you know, before we started our meeting, I went and read all the notes in the emails so that I was completely caught up on your account. I mean, it's real, just having that. And so we refer back to DealCloud Pipeline, which is the name we call it internally all the time. But it's been a huge win for us internally. And then in 2014, so we added 30 new enterprise customers. And over those 3 years, we kept our renewal rate at 91%, which we're proud of. That 9% keeps me awake at night, but it's inevitable that, you know, we've had firms go out of business. We've had full groups that were using our software actually pick up and move to another private equity firm or an investment bank. That stuff happens. Of course, we strive for 100%, but 91% is pretty good in the industry. So lesson 5, highs and lows. So I'll start with the picture on the right. You guys don't know this, but this is actually a hole in my wall where I punched the wall in my house, and you guys will love this. This isn't when we crashed in 2014. This is BPA. So BPA is a partner that we have that is located over in Europe, and there's been some frustrating times with them. So I am not proud of this, but my wife said, if you're doing this presentation, you got to show the hole in the wall that you put there. But we've also had some great highs. My favorite story is Ben. So Ben sells everything, and he's the type of sales guy that if I'm sitting in a sales meeting with him, he makes me nervous. He makes me squirm because he says stuff, and I'm like, oh. But he's very good at it, and he would go and do these sales calls by himself. I was back at the office executing, and so he goes into Madison Dearborn Partners, one of the largest private equity firms in the country. And he has a final pitch to them to buy our software. So he goes, this is in Chicago, downtown Chicago, beautiful view of the lake and everything. The final meeting is in their executive boardroom, and it's like 25 partners that are in the boardroom, all teed up, ready for Ben to come in, plug his laptop in, and do the thing. And so there's a receptionist there that greets Ben, and he comes up the elevator and he checks in. And she looks at Ben and she goes, where's your team? Are they in the elevator behind you? And he's like, no, it's just me. And she looks over, there's like 25 people in the conference room, and she looks at him and goes, good luck. He closed the deal. And so it's a great win for us. We use Madison Dearborn as a reference client all the time. But I mean, that's just the way Ben always worked, and he's closed some big ones. So 2015, last year, I mentioned that we moved over to the North Carolina Music Factory. The company's been profitable since 2013. We've experienced 131% year-over-year revenue growth. Our renewal rate, I mentioned before, at 91%. We've grown the team significantly. The punchline here, and the reason that I reached out to you originally, was because we had an event in December of 2015. We actually closed a VC investment for $5.3 million. So it was kind of it was an event in the company, and I said, it's been 5 years. I'd like to tell people the story because we've certainly had our lessons learned. Since we closed that investment, I told you about we wouldn't hire until there's visibility. This allows us to go hire additional product developers, additional salespeople. we've actually doubled the size of the team since that investment just 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago. So it's an exciting time at DealCloud as we're really growing. So we have 17 people now, and it's kind of split between Charlotte and Hoboken. That's our revenue growth. It's not a hockey stick. It's been consistent. A software as a service business is valued on annual recurring revenue, and that's our annual recurring revenue growth. And it's basically continued to grow like that. It's not a home run, but we've done quite well, and that keeps going up, and that means the valuation of the business keeps going up. So, lesson learned, you guys knew I'd have to put this chart up there. Monitor customer usage. So if you develop software, I know you guys do a lot of software development, we have a function in our system that allows us to monitor the activity of our customers. Are they using the system? And really the numbers on this, don't worry about that. It doesn't really mean anything. What this is showing is the level of activity that we see at all of our customers, and we monitor this on a monthly and quarterly basis. So if a customer all of a sudden, they're heavy users of the system and all of a sudden it falls off, we're going to catch that because we have this alerting that we do that we then throw into a spreadsheet and we run this analysis. This has been huge. From an account management standpoint, when you have 125 customers like we have today, there's no way you can monitor all the activity. But we have this automated so that we can just do in a half hour at the end of the month, we can go back and look at how much the software has been used. And if there's a big drop off, we're on the phone. I mean, I made a call today to one of our clients and said, hey, I noticed they were really, really heavy users, but they've had a bunch of turnover there. So then it's the reach out, hey, can we do some more training? Can we come on site or whatever it may be? There's always turnover in any business, and that happens. But I'll tell you, having the ability to monitor usage of the software has been really huge for us. So as far as this last slide, 2016 and beyond, so we took the investment, the cash on the balance sheet, we're going to hire ahead of the revenue, and we're going to R&D new product opportunities. As I said, we have 125 enterprise customers. So I mentioned that word corporate development in the beginning of the presentation. So corporate development is M&A groups inside of large corporations. So one that we landed back in October, it's the biggest name on our customer list is MasterCard, but it's their internal acquisition group. So they're looking for payments technologies and they're looking for companies that they can acquire to take them away from their competitors. And they're using our software to do it. My Eye Doctor, you probably see, I think there's one right across the street here, there's a My Eye Doctor. So this is a crazy use case. So this firm was started to go and find all these mom and pop eye doctors, optometrists around the country and roll them up underneath a corporate umbrella. So they purchased our software 4 years ago, and they have 5 people on the deal team. They're running around the country looking for optometrists they can acquire. And these are little mom and pop type of things. But the volume is very heavy, the roll-up they're doing. And so they've been using our system, the minimum user count, 5 users for a couple of years, and they called us at the end of last year and they said, all this time we do the acquisition and then it's over in your system. There's no more activity on that particular client that we just, or acquisition that we just did. But we have a whole integration process that we go through. So as soon as they sign up a deal, they have to move all of their IT systems in there. There's a human resources component. Basically, every department in the company has a list of 2 to 50 things that they need to do to integrate that business. And they said, since all the information is already in your system, we could use your system for the integration task. Hey, that sounds great to us because it added 40 users to their site. And so Evan actually worked on that. They now do all of the acquisitions and then the execution side of things. So if we can get into more and more corporate development, just that opportunity is there. I mentioned before we have 17 employees split between Charlotte and Hoboken. The company is located here. It is not a New York or New Jersey based company. Now New Jersey we actually were in Bryant Park in New York, but New Jersey offers some incentives to jump over across the river, so we did do that on January 1st. But we basically it's mainly sales and product management that are up in New York, and then the execution team down here. We did, with the turnover of the original investors, we did install a new board of directors. So that's just in place as of beginning of January, and I'm a member of the board. And we're really poised for a great, I'll call it DealCloud 2.0. So we now have this investment from Cultivation Capital. We have some other institutional money in, and they're really, that's what they acquire, technology businesses, and so it's an exciting time for us to have the investment, to have their leadership. They're actually out of St. Louis of all places, but it's going to be a great partnership going forward. So we're only 2.5 months into the 3 months into the partnership now, but it's going quite well. So that's our story. I'd love to field any questions. Hopefully that was interesting and maybe you picked up a thing or two. Yeah?
What would you say the impact of the NC idea was, and did you value the advice that you get after you receive their funding? Because it's my understanding that they kind of want to be involved in key points of their business.
That's true. We had, I think, 3 checkpoints after we won the grant where we would have to show some of it was growth, but even, as I said, some of that money was earmarked for like advertising. We actually had to show that we went out and did print ads and that type of thing. That wasn't that over the top at all. They were good partners to work with. The real work was done just to win the grant, because you go through your initial application, then the second application is a lot larger, then you go through the pitch process. That's the time-consuming part. But as far as being in your shorts, that wasn't a problem at all. Yeah, go ahead.
How granular were you in your sources and uses when you went out in the last year plus your round?
I mean, it's a due diligence process. So now, with that said, it was more of an operating model that we put together. This is the hiring plan. This is the spend. This is the path to re-profitability again. We have a fairly detailed operating plan, and now Lisa, who does all of our CFO stuff, on a monthly basis to our investors, we're showing where we are tracking against that plan. I'd call it more of a budget than anything else, but the budget that we put together was what sold them on making the investment in DealCloud.
And you had some accordion action, I'm guessing, depending on feedback from them. Maybe you started off wanting more or less and sort of tempered your budget based on what they were willing to go for. I'm guessing there's some give and take there. Right?
There is. I shouldn't go into detail on that stuff though, but yeah, I mean, it's an investment, it's a negotiation, but everything's negotiable. Yeah.
Question. So, a lot of these private equity groups, investment banks are storing a lot of privileged, confidential information on your cloud. Could you maybe speak to the security, encryption features, or how did that progress? Or
going back to my corporate development MasterCard, those guys, it's over the top, and it took us, I don't know how long to close the MasterCard deal, because in these large corporations you have to go through purchasing and you have to have all of that security stuff in place. It never was a really big deal to us until this last year. And so now we're having to add, the only time it was a big deal was for European firms. So our second largest customer is located in Germany, but they could not have their data housed in the US. So we actually had to find a data center, because all our stuff is hosted at Amazon Web Services, it's fine. But we had to go find a data center over there. That was the only time it was an issue. But now we have a lot of these corporate development groups that are in the pipeline, and the sales cycle is so much longer, because the typical buying process is you have the deal guys that want the software and they sign off on it, and then they turn you over to purchasing, and it's purchasing's job to beat you down and to implement all of these security requirements, and it's been tough. We satisfied MasterCard's requirements, and we have another one that's just about to close that we have to go through the same process. But the good news is once we implement this for a couple of these big guys, then it's repeatable to the others. But it's a really valid question, no doubt. Yeah.
So you talked about issues with freemium.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any more that you could talk about? That's not other than they just don't convert.
We just couldn't get them to convert, and it's a B2B play. And I just looking back on it, we should have just charged $20 a month just for the feature rather than free, because I just think making that leap. I don't have great advice on it, except that I think we made a mistake there with going with the freemium model. But we had one competitor that did like upfront payment, and then you could get access to all the features. And so we were just trying to differentiate ourselves. The other thing freemium did do that was good is that the users went from 0 to I don't know how many in no time. I think we had 5,500 firms on our software in 2 months. because it was free. So everybody signed up. Hey, if I have the opportunity to get a deal this way, why not sign up? And they did, but they didn't pay for it. So, yeah.
Just to add on to that, what do you think about just doing like a 3-month free trial? Did you think about just having like a deadline to kind of stop the freemium model?
Yeah, we did, but it was too late. Once we had gone freemium, you can't go back, and I guess you could and say, we're going to turn it off after 3 months, but we're trying to gain customers, so we didn't want to upset them. I just think from the very beginning, we just kind of went with the wrong idea there. Yeah.
As you started building out your team, what were you looking for besides just being capable at the job you wanted them to do?
Like the skill profile?
No, actually the types of personality. As you get bigger, you start to want to make sure that your culture is the way you want it to be.
Right.
So how do you know that you're bringing the right person who will fit and actually augment?
Well, first of all, the profile of the people that we're hiring now are young millennials, I would say. We're in a process right now where we have to figure out what to do with our office, but we've all said collectively we're staying in and around Uptown. I think it's just important for attracting talent that you're kind of in this area, and as I said, we're over at the Music Factory. I'd also go back to the customer service attitude. It's a culture that we have, and no matter what, no matter where you're coming from, you gotta get used to the culture, because if something comes in at 11 o'clock tonight, someone is going to answer it. And the way we have real simple setup, if you email support@dealcloud.com, it emails to every single person in the company. And so we've trained our customers to use that. Now they can still call, but most of them just email in any support requests. And we're just manic about it. So from a hiring perspective, we just have to set that expectation. Support isn't the most glamorous. Let's be honest. Nobody wants to do, support 24/7. But we're a software company. There's a technology component and there's a support component. And as long as everybody has the expectation that as the founder of the company, I'm expected to answer support. And I do. I don't do it as much as some of the guys that are sitting here, but I take my fair share, and it's just an expectation we set from day one.
I was hoping you'd go into a little more detail about fundraising efforts, like the first time around, especially in North Carolina, because it sounded like you went through all those different avenues and it was not very successful. So, just why you think it turned out that way?
Well, first of all, you start with Charlotte, where you know everybody, right? And that was good. And then we kind of went down, and that's high net worth individuals, so to say, and some high net worth individuals in Charlotte did come in. The next group we went to were the angel groups. So we did a dance with Piedmont Angel Partners for a while. I don't want to badmouth anybody, but it was pretty over the top, and they didn't fund us. And then the next is venture capital, and we also went down that path. We were actually, for the type of company we were too early for venture capital back in the Series B days. We would have been a great fit for Piedmont, actually, and I think that was the profile. So now, it wasn't here or then, but Charlotte has the Charlotte Angel? Yeah, Charlotte Angel Fund. They weren't around when we were doing that in 2012. Charlotte Angel Fund would have been a perfect profile for us. So if they were around then, I think that would have been a really good fit. Would they have funded us? I don't know. It was hard. there wasn't a lot of takers. We had a lot of nods, as I said, but not a lot of takers. So the second time around, it was a lot easier. But of course, we could show a profitable business at that point. So I don't know if I have any advice on that, except just be ready to hear no a lot. Yeah.
How do you manage your relationships with your out-of-state funders?
So we do a monthly update. So that just started, the last 2 months, but it was sent out yesterday. And it's all our key performance indicators, how things are growing, and it's against the plan that I talked about before. So those are the updates. I have a call later today to discuss some stuff, so we'll have calls from time to time. But again, it's not over the top at all. I mean, we have the autonomy to run the business the way we want to. So it hasn't, at least to this point, it hasn't been too bad. Yeah.
So based on where you are today, how do you think financing is going to move? What's that look like? Is that a fair question?
Yeah, it's a fair question, but we're 2 months into our Series C here, so it's a ways off. I think. Yeah, I mean, of course, we all want a big exit. I still have a lot of personal tied up with the business, but I believe in 100% that we're doing, and I think we will ultimately be successful. What that exit is, I don't know yet, but there is an exit. I guess to answer your question, there is an exit. Is it 2, 5, 10 years from now? Who knows? Yeah.
How did you generate 25,000 signups in the industry alone?
With the, what I was saying, it was 5,500. Yeah. With the freemium model? Is that what you're asking?
At some point, you said you had a list of 25,000 people in the industry.
For our email list. Geez, how has that come together? It started with Ben's Outlook. He had a lot. He logs every single person. All our customers, all our prospects, we just are dump into that database all the time. I guarantee you there's people in this room that are on our distribution list, whether they like it or not. Just anyone we meet, we're putting in there. But we didn't buy a list. We never bought a list. The private equity investment banking world is actually relatively small, so we probably have a lot of those people in our email list. But it was just cobbled together over 5 years.
Did you do like the PR stuff, like the mailing list? Was that in-house, or did you reach out to any, or did you like outsource that at all?
You know, again, with NC Idea, there was a little PR stuff, but no, we haven't really done that at all. We do all of our, you know, we put together, I think Savin built our MailChimp template that looks pretty nice. It's kind of the same thing, but we just use MailChimp and push it out to the 25,000 users in that database whenever we can. But yeah, we've handled all that in-house. You know, someone asked me earlier before we started, as far as we do get leads through our website, and it's mainly generated from those press releases and stuff. They'll see it, they'll go to our website, it says inquire here, you push, you fill out a little form. And we probably get, I don't know, a couple leads a day probably that way. You know, some of them are bogus leads, but some of them turn into real deals. But we've just all done that all organically. So we've done some stuff with, you know, with meta tags and that type of thing, but we don't really know what we're doing. We've kind of done it, just kind of figuring it out, and Savin's done a great job with that. But you know, I wouldn't call ourselves digital marketers at all. We've never done paid search. And someone I was talking to before the session, yeah, there you go, right there. I was researching a lot of the, you know, private equity software, investment banking software. Those keywords are quite expensive. I don't know why, but they are pretty expensive, but we should probably be doing some of that stuff. Any other questions? Yeah.
When you did the eye doctor, did you have any issues with HIPAA, private personal health information?
We don't have any of that data on the system. The data is more about you know, where the optometrist is located. You know, there's some information about, you know, how much they're paying for acquiring the business and stuff, but no health-related information on there, no patient information on there, so we haven't had to cross that bridge.
How did you actually, or how did your the VC firm find you, or how did you find out?
You know, we're in the business. You know, our end users are the people that would actually fund you. So, and again, it's somewhat small, so we kind of found each other. They are actually, or had been, a user of our biggest competitor, and they're in the process of switching over now that they've invested in us. But yeah, so they were on our list to call, but turned out that they invested in the business, and now they're going to be users.
So they were unhappy with your competitors, so they sought you out and said, hey, let's buy these guys and compete with them.
They're not happy at all. They are not happy at all. Yeah, I'm sure some stuff is going on behind the scenes, but no, they are definitely not happy about that. But it happens, right? So.
Are the new crowdfunding, crowdsourcing type funding websites, is that a business to go after? Is that a group that you all are interested in capturing?
It was on the list that I showed earlier. We didn't seriously consider it. I don't know for our business. This is just a personal opinion. For the crowdfunding, I think a consumer product just resonates more for that type of thing, because people, I didn't even go through our value proposition today with you all because I'd put everybody to sleep within 2 minutes. But if I came in here and said, we have this tangible baby product that does that, you're going to get it, especially if you have kids at home. And I just think that that is more suited, it's just a personal opinion, for a crowdfunding type of opportunity. I just don't know if we would have been successful through crowdfunding at all.
I don't think I asked the question.
Okay.
Would you pursue businesses that do crowdfunding for them to be able to use your software to manage their crowdfunded portfolios? Is that a different question? I think?
It is. What do you think?
I don't think so.
No.
I don't know if we're gonna keep up with it.
Evan's our product manager, so I have to ask him. I have to defer to him on that. Yeah, I don't know. It's just a different profile. Yeah, I don't think so. Any other questions? Okay, well, thanks for everybody coming out. I hope this was somewhat informative.